This is a test of the emergency broadcast system.
5, check for sound. 4,
It's showtime.
3,
Let's
2,
go.
1.
Thanks to Rode Microphones and Harlan Hogan's VoiceOverEssentials.com, the home of the Portabooth Pro. This is the Pro Audio Suite podcast with Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. From LA, George the Tech Whittam, the tech to the VO stars. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy. All right, the long-awaited show where we shoot out between the NTG5 and the Sennheiser MKH-416. We have a couple of extra guests, a couple of special guests this week who are going to help us decide, are they the same? Are they different? Which one's better? Who knows? We have Chris Mc Callum, who is based on the Gold Coast in Australia, who's a location audio chap. We have the award-winning Benztown champion from Southern Cross Austereo, Brendan Tacey.
And howdy.
Of course, we got the normal crew. We have Robert in Chicago.
Do we?
Hello.
George in LA and Robbo up in Sydney.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right, let's just play the file. This is an A/B test between two microphones, the Rode NTG5 and the Sennheiser MKH-416. They're both new, so there's no problem with deterioration. We're in the same environment, running through the same preamp. The preamp being a Neve 1073 DPA. So there's mic A and mic B. The Rode NTG5 and the Sennheiser MKH-416. Okay, so now we've got to work out, firstly, which microphone is which. We did change the level on one because its output was lower, but everything else remained the same. So which one is which one sounds better, or do they both sound the same? And because it's a location, actually branded as a location mic, we should probably start with Chris.
I think so. I think that's the perfect choice.
See, I was going to raise the whole location versus studio use of this particular mic or type of mic, but we might leave that for a later discussion.
Oh, no, go for it.
Oh, well, it actually has some major impact. And being the history of the short condenser shotgun microphone was actually developed as a location sound mic to be used on the end of a boom pole and to be somewhere between half a metre and a metre from someone's mouth. So obviously when it's being used in the studio, it's a completely different application. So it has a different sound. So you actually are fighting against some of the inherent built-in traits of that microphone.
You're like using the proximity effect.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you look for, Chris, if you're talking about location mic as opposed to in-studio mic? Yeah,
well, my history, I did 20 years in post in studios and I've done almost 20 years out in the field. And it's interesting, that whole crossover of using a short condenser shotgun as a voiceover mic. And I can see the reasons why, because the reason that they sound so good is because they've got that presence boost built into the electronics of it, which was designed to lift the human voice out of any background that's being recorded on location. So obviously in the studio, that does half the job for an engineer, is, you know, that boost is already there. So it can work both for and against you. And I think in your particular samples that we just listened to, that's what gives away which one's the 416. Sorry, what are we calling it? 416.
416.
Yes.
Come on, get with it.
I know, 416, 416, 416. I found the I'm going to call it Sennheiser.
Okay. Just go against the grain. Yep.
Exactly. I found the Sennheiser to be, in your example with your particular voice, more sibilant than the NTG5. And I actually found the NTG5 to be a warmer, more pleasant sound to the ear. Now to clarify this, I listened both on my JBL studio monitors, I listened on in-ear monitors, and I listened on my Audio-Technica field headphones that I use every day. So it was kind of a common test across all of them, so I knew what I was listening to. And I immediately picked the Sennheiser because it was, I thought, overly bright in comparison to the Rode. And I thought for this application, the Rode shone through.
That's really interesting. You've actually
pretty well said exactly what Chris Gates from Southern Cross, a stereo in Melbourne, said to me when I sent it to him and saw him a couple of weeks ago. Almost the same, which is really interesting. Okay, well, let's jump across to the US. Robert, what do you think?
One seemed to have a little bit less bass to it.
Is it an obvious difference?
No, not at all. I mean, this is the type of difference that could be just a half an inch difference in proximity. I mean, it's really subtle. You could cut between these two mics without much of a problem at all.
Well, I made sure I stayed the same distance from the mics.
They're really close in my ear.
Yeah. Brendan, what do you think?
I'd first like to say thank you for not going straight to me after Chris because
Thanks, Andrew.
My technical knowledge of this stuff is just not in the same stratosphere. And I think I came back to you, Andrew, after you sent that file to me. My first response to you was, I think you've stuffed up, mate. You've only sent me one file.
Yes.
In the fact that I just heard no difference whatsoever. My monitoring's through a pair of Adam A5Xs and Audio Technica MX50 headphones as well. And, mate, I heard nothing. So I don't know if I need to get a new set of ears to be able to pick the nuances at the depth of what some of our other guys will be picking it at. But that is the extent of my review.
If it make you feel any better, I edited the two bits together and I came back the next day and then I forgot where the edits were and I couldn't actually pick the edits.
Thank heavens.
I just remember the end. That's all I remember. I knew which mic was the last one, right at the end, last few words, but that's about it.
And it had nothing to do with too many bottles of Shardy afterwards?
No, it did not. No, which, as you know, is unlike me, but that's another story.
That's why I haven't been down for a while, mate.
Yeah. I think the last time you popped into my place, it kicked on.
It was a late night.
Yeah. All right, back to business. George, have you had a chance to have a proper listen?
I have to ask at the end when you actually say the names of the mics, because you're not switching the mics at the same time as you're saying
that's
them.
just the one mic. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. That was interesting because that was like a psychological trick.
It was, wasn't it? Because I'm listening, I'm analysing every microsecond of those two, going, which one's which?
I just kept on listening to the end, like mic A and mic B.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
the Rode the word Rode NTG5 and the word Sennheiser 416
Yep.
clearly is way more sibilant, right? It just has sibilant content.
Yep.
So it made me think, well, maybe that is it. So at the end of the day, the two are unbelievably close. I would have to say that A is slightly warmer and slightly smoother at the top, not as harsh. And because of that, because I know the 416 so well, I'm going to have to say that's probably the Rode. And it's also because I know the Rode NTG3 really well, which has been around a long time, which has always been like a mic that people thought was a cheaper Sennheiser 416, but actually sounds absolutely different.
Yeah.
In every way. And so I figure Rode, kind of like they've been throwing things at the wall to see what sticks with all these shotgun mics. You know, they've been playing with the EQ curve over the years. And then, so now the NTG5 comes along and they've come up with something that I think sounds great, and that they seem to have found a sweet spot between warmth and definition and, articulation. And I think it's a pretty nice sweet spot. It really is great. The NTG4 I have here with the top end boost turned on sounds more like a 416. But when it's flat, it might sound a little bit more like the NTG3.
Yeah.
So, the NTG4 is kind of interesting where you get a little bit more personality. You can change the sound of the mic a lot more with that boost. NTG5, it's really like the NTG3's heir apparent in terms of this is our next flagship mic that has no bells and whistles. It has nice features, nice accessories, but no lots of extra bells and whistles and switches and buttons.
Yep.
And just has a really clean, low noise output. And thereby, I think they definitely made a winner. Could you interchange them? I would say for sure.
Yeah.
Any producer could get a sound that they're looking for out of the NTG5. They could EQ in the sibilance or the brightness or the harshness or the attack or whatever it is. and vice versa. You can do the same with a 41.6 and remove it or add more, depending on the producer. So they can all be EQ'd and they can all get the same, you get the results you're looking for. But for something that's less than half or around the half the price and could be an excellent travel and stunt mic, for those that already have a 41.6, the NTG5 is darn impressive, I really have to say.
Yeah. Robbo, what do you think?
I'm going to go with the flow because the only difference I heard was the sibilance, and knowing the 416 so well, I sort of picked that sibilant file to be the 416. So I'm going to go with everybody else, which is probably boring, but hopefully accurate.
Yeah, well, basically, it's correct. The one with the most sibilance is the 41.6.
For me, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this too, Brendan, is in radio, if I was producing that voiceover for radio, I would probably pick that 416 file over the NTG only because you want that crack, that presence, that slightly brighter thing to cut through everything when I'm making radio imaging. Would you go with that, Brendan?
Yeah, look, fair point. I guess, once you get all your processing, the type of work that I do, though, once I get all the processing over the top of it and, blend it in with everything else, I tend to EQ quite a little bit hotter in the top end for that cut through. But if that mic's going to make that little bit of difference, then, every little bit's going to help with that, isn't it? Yeah,
it's interesting, though, because the other guy I was trying to get on the show, but he's unfortunately got married. So he's on his honeymoon. But he's the audio guy at the radio station I do imaging for in Dubai. And I sent him, I said, look, I've got this new mic. I'll send it to you just so you have a listen, see what you think. And he ran it through his processing and said, can you just use that and not use the 41.6? So the 41.6 got put back in the box and he prefers this one. It works much better with his processing. And so there you go.
Well, here's the question at the end of the day. Are they different enough to matter?
No.
There's so many different voiceover people across the work that I do, and all using different microphones, different rooms that they're recording in, at home, in studios. And by the time I get the files and get them all built and process them to get to an end result, for me, it doesn't really matter where the original source is coming from.
Yeah.
In other words, the mic doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. That's all we have tonight, everybody. Yeah. And be sure to tip your bartenders.
Exactly. So, Chris, you've probably had a bit of a look at the NTG5 and see what you get for location work. And it has actually been sold as a location mic. So you get the pistol grip, you get the dead cat, you get the Rycote shock mount, all that kind of stuff. All comes in the package. I mean, for me, if I was a guy getting into location work, it'd be a no-brainer, I would have thought.
Absolutely. I was going to make that point, Andrew, that the fact that all that comes, when I buy a Sennheiser setup with that, you're looking at about $2,500 by the time you've got all of that accessories to go with it.
Yeah. And this is coming in, Australian dollars, 760, 500 US. Yeah. And I know they spent a lot of time getting this thing together, but it's interesting how they didn't actually direct it towards voiceover when the 41.6 is probably the most used voiceover microphone on the planet.
Yeah, but I think too, the reason for that, what the big selling point with this, and from a location point of view, is that the thing weighs 79 grams.
Yeah.
And that too. So when you've got something like a 41.6 or an 8060, which is my preferred Sennheiser location mic these days, but after 10 minutes of holding out on the end of a fully extended boom, that it puts a lot of strain on your shoulders. So to have something that's half the weight of everything else makes a big, big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they made it so light. I mean, it must be, obviously, I think that tube is machined out of aluminum, right?
It's space-grade aluminium, or aluminum.
Yeah, so I guess that's the majority of the weight savings right there. Where in studio mics, it's all about the mass of the chassis and being machined out of brass and all this. This is a whole different beast when it's just, like you said, on the end of a 16-foot boom pole. Do the math if you know anything about physics. That makes a huge difference. I've done some of that production mixing myself. It is no joke, especially when we went from film to digital, right? Jeez Louise.
Well, exactly. When you had an 8-minute mag of film, you knew that 8 minutes was the amount of time you were holding a boom pole in the air, but now you can record for hours.
Oh, God. Just take it back. Just take it back. Keep it rolling. Just take it back. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Because I think they claim they've actually reduced the weight by 60% by using space-grade aluminium as opposed to brass.
The other thing that's worth pointing out too is the RF bias technology, the ability to operate under very humid and wet conditions, which a lot of mics tend to die on. To have, if I'm up in the Daintree rainforest or doing something in a very wet environment, you need to know that the mic's going to continue to work. And that certainly is the case with the NTG5.
Yeah. And what about other mics that you use? Are they the same?
Well, all of your top-end Sennheisers are. The 41.6 is certainly.
The whole MKH series
Yeah,
is all RF.
exactly. Yes, that's right. And that's what it's
'Cause I've
designed.
got some old MKH ones from the 70s that are wonderful mics, like a 415 and some others.
Well, I'm still running a 12-volt T-powered 416 from the 70s, and it. In fact, I did manage to kill one. It's the only time I've actually killed a 41.6, and that was working on the German version of "I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here," and we had the most horrendous rain over 2 days, and I ended up sliding down an embankment and landing in a creek, and my prized old 416 bit the dust, and not even Sennheiser could resurrect it.
You could hear your voice all going off in the distance saying, I don't get paid enough for this shit.
Splash.
And is it buried on the beach?
Have you ever used an 815?
The long one, yes.
Yeah.
No, they're much better on the end of a Fisher boom pole with some mechanics in the way to actually hold the weight because they weigh a ton.
I've got an 815 that someone chopped down to the length of a 416.
It kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
It kind of does. I wonder how much the mics are actually different, and if the main difference is just in the interference tube.
I think the difference. Yes, that's right. The capsule remains the same.
I love to tell people with these shotgun mics who are used to Neumanns and large diaphragm condensers how the proximity effect is a whole different beast, and how where they think the microphone or the capsule actually is not at all where they think it is. And so, so when they're like, they think they're eating the mic, they're not really eating the mic. And it's changed the way I think people think about using the 41.6 and other shotguns because of that. It's just.
But it also shows you the reach of the shotgun mic, that you can be that much farther away, like, 2 to 4 times the distance that you're away from a large diaphragm condenser, and it still is like it sounds like it's in your head.
Yeah.
I would be very much interested in testing out the NTG5 for its reach, because that tends to be a thing in location sound as how much reach you do get out of a shotgun, and that's where the 41.6 really shines.
What do you like to use for short mics for interiors and low ceilings? I'm
very much of the belief that there's not one mic fits all situations, and that tends to have been the attitude with the 41.6 is I use it for everything, but that's not the case. It depends on the location, it depends on the voice, the type of voice, the pitch of the voice. So I carry around a very heavy Pelican case full of different microphones and drag out what I think is relevant, and I've got everything from sort of 1-inch diaphragms down to pencil condensers to ribbon mics to dynamics. It really does depend on where we are, what we're doing, what the background noise is, and who we're recording.
You, sir, are an artiste.
An artiste, I know. I think I've actually got a bit of a problem. I think a glass of red wine in an eBay is very dangerous for me.
Or maybe that's
What's your desert island mic?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's interesting. So if I can only take one microphone.
Production desert island, and not production on a desert island.
I tell you what.
Production in everything from
the jungle to
the Antarctic to the city.
I'd go with a large diaphragm mic. The Rode NT1 is, I think, a very undervalued mic. I've used that in a number of situations that's got me out of a lot of trouble. And but I also have a guy in Melbourne who hand makes replicas of the German brands of big studio mics, and he does a brilliant job. And I've got quite a collection of his. And I recently bought a Telefunken clone of a 251, which is just beautiful. It weighs about 300 kilos, but it's just gorgeous. He calls himself Open Plan Recording. He's based down in Williamstown in Melbourne. And he makes beautiful microphones.
I'm using one of his 87 replicas, the OPR 87, and I've had that for all my voice stuff for probably 12 months now.
Yep.
And it was actually Chris Gates from SCA Commercial Production suggested, and have loved it. Had great feedback as a result of it.
See, I was going to throw this out at you, Brendan, because I've got a 41.6 that I go to all the time. But when I'm doing voiceover for like a radio program, so if I'm recording the host of a program or whatever, I'll switch out to the TLM 103. And I was going to say to you, do you have a second mic that you use for a particular reason?
No, I don't. Look, I hear what you're saying, though, because there is just a difference. Like when we get guys doing narrative type work, they tend to be doing it in the studio, so in the on-air studios for us, which are mic'd up. They're not 416s in there. They're Neumann. I forget what they are. They're these nice Neumann mics, but it's not UU87. But there is a difference in it, and it just sounds better as a narrative type of piece as opposed to voiceover for promos coming off the 416s, which are pretty much through most of our production studios.
I think with those large diaphragm mics, you're capturing so much more information in a studio environment, and you get so much more to work with in post as a result. It's a richer, fuller sound. I think that's where your choice of mic's more important too. You actually have to, if you're compensating for the room you're recording in, the microphone has to be better.
Yeah.
What episode was it where we were talking about like where do you put your money in your studio, and I think I said like I'd stick with the $300 microphone and fix your room before you buy a better mic.
Yeah, any day.
Yeah.
Any day of the week.
Well, back in the 80s, we all used to spend a lot of money building rooms, and the technology was all very similar studio to studio, but the difference was the design and architecture of the actual acoustic environment you were recording in.
Yeah. And you would know Des DeKeen, I'm guessing, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he used to build beautiful rooms.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a lost art form, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
all budgetary now.
Yeah. Shout out to the guys who built the Austereo production suites here in Sydney. The suite that Sideshow, the imaging producer for Sydney, is completely glass, wall to wall.
Really?
Yeah. Four walls of glass.
On 3 walls, three walls of glass. The southern wall is.
But it looks good though. That's the most important thing. It looks
Got a good view over the street. Yep.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, so Chris, what did you use the NT1 for? I'm curious.
I use the NT1 if I need to do a voiceover on location. Often someone will say, "Oh, look, we're shooting a commercial, we're shooting a series, and we need to do some narration because we're going to lose our talent. Can you bring along an appropriate mic?" So I've got a thing called a chaotic eyeball, which is a big.
Oh God, we all hate those. But anyway,
if you saw some of the acoustic environments I end up in, it makes the world of difference, particularly with the NT1. So it just flattens everything out. It's certainly straight out of the box, it's too flat to use, but take it into post and you can do a lot more with it, as opposed to a very bright, picking up every reflection of the room sort of sound. So that's saved me in many situations. But the NT1, it's a super quiet mic. I think it's one of the quietest large diaphragm mics ever built, and it's a very, very flat response, which often is what I'm after more than any enhancement, because I leave it to the guys who then get it after I've finished with it to work on, and they don't want me to do too much to it. So
Is that the one that we concluded was closest to the 41.6?
yes, it is. Yeah.
Now, listen, I have to ask you another question off the bat here, and completely off subject. But I have seen photos of you, Chris Mc Callum, in your sound recording gear on location in the Nutty.
yes.
Can you please explain?
No, I can't. The brief story, and in fact, those photos have gone viral, and I apparently appear on a Russian sound recordists forum and on a Hong Kong and Sri Lankan sound recordist forum. But the story behind that was we were filming a lifestyle series, and we were traveling all the way up Western Australia into the Northern Territory, and it was summer and it was hot. And we ended up on Cable Beach in Broome, which is an officially designated nudist beach. And for some reason, I was bunked down with the director. We were sharing rooms as we went around. We had a day off, and he said, "What are you doing for your day off?" And I said, "I think I'll go to the beach." And he said, "Oh, isn't that a nude beach?" And I said, "Yeah, it is." And he said, "Oh, does that bother you?" I said, "No, not at all." I said, I'm happy to get my gear off whenever." So we were filming the next day on the same beach, and we'd filmed all the stuff we needed with the talent, and the cameraman was doing all the pickup shots of the surf and the sun and everything, and everyone had finished, and the director came up to me and he said, "Hey, how about getting your gear off?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Oh, it'd be fun." So what we did was I took all my clothes off, I put my sound gear back on, and I stood next to the cameraman who was intently looking through his eyepiece. And this went on for about 10 minutes and he didn't notice. And there were all these people lined up taking photos of us. And he's looked up and he's going, what the fuck's going on? Why are all these people? And he looked up at me, and the angle he looked up at me from, I don't think he's ever recovered from. So that particular image went out to all and sundry, and it became a thing. So I ended up doing backstories for MasterChef one year in the middle of Emerald country, Queensland somewhere, with a crew I'd never ever worked with. And the director said, "You're the guy who gets his gear off." And I said, "Well, I really don't want to be known as the guy who gets his gear off." And he said, "Well, are you going to do it now?" And I said, "Why?" And he said, "No, it'll be fun." So it became a thing. So he took a photo of me. I was standing next to this poor MasterChef contestant, standing there naked with a prickly pear next to us. And
is that what you call it?
That's yes. And simultaneously, there were 4 crews around Australia shooting all of these backstories. So it became a thing. So all the sound recorders took their gear off and had a photo taken. And in the end, we actually all discussed there was enough of us that we thought about putting a calendar together of nude soundos.
Nice.
And were the mics strategically placed?
Well, that's when you needed a large fluffy cover.
Yeah.
So this is where the 416 beat the NTG 5.
That's right. Yes.
That's right.
Is that a dead cat, or do you need waxing? Yeah.
Yes. So I think you should change your name, mate. I think you should become the Naked Soundo then.
Or just
nakedsoundo.com.au.
Nudo. I'd rather be known for quality sound recording, but look, whatever gets you work, you take.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
That's
Exactly. Take
Mr.
it.
Large
Absolutely.
Diaphragm.
I'm not sure if it works for or against me yet.
Dear, we're getting sidetracked here, aren't we? Okay, so back to the subject, the main subject.
That's why I tried to bring it back in for you.
Good work. So, what's the conclusion here of the NTG 5 versus the venerable 41.6?
Actually, something we didn't discuss and we didn't really have data for, we didn't get a room tone sample between the two. Does one have noticeably higher noise floor than the other?
Noise floor, well, probably the 41.6 does. It certainly had less output.
So less output. So I didn't look at the specs on both mics, like the self noise or that kind of thing. But
I think the self noise of the NTG 5 is a lot lower.
Okay, cool. I mean, you would think it would be. It's
higher output and lower. What was the difference in gain between the two? Do you know?
I told Robbo when I did it, it was quite a bit. It was almost like 6 dB, I think.
Yeah, it was something like that, you told me, yeah.
I think what we've got to consider too is that the technology in the 416 is actually fairly antiquated these days.
Yeah.
It's not really a fair comparison almost. I mean,
Some of the
because of the
60s,
technology.
really.
No, see, I've retired my 41.6. I do, and when I have dragged it out for things like I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here, because I'm afraid of damaging anything else. But when I do drag it out, I go, wow, this sounds great. But I've replaced all of mine with the MKH 8060 series, which I love, and it also as a voiceover mic, I think is a much better option again. But that's a whole new argument.
That's the side diaphragm. That's a side address, right?
No. It's a shorter version of the 41.6 and much better off-axis rejection and sound. It's a much nicer mic all round. I'm actually using it right now.
What's the they have a large diaphragm side address that's I thought an 8000 series. That's supposed to be a really kick-ass mic.
Oh yeah, that's the MKH 800.
800. That's the okay.
Yeah,
I would love
kind
to
of
check
an oddity
that mic
in
out.
their line.
But that looks like a wonderful mic, though.
It is. I've only used it a little bit, but it's nice. But
the 8000 series, is interesting from the point of view that you've got you can actually screw off the XLRs and put them into CommBox, make them shorter still. You can put digital converters on the back of them and have it as a purely digital mic as well. So they've actually updated the technology quite significantly on
these.
these.
Like the electronics on them are tiny. The 8040, the little cardioid, is stubby.
Yeah, well, I use an 8040 quite a lot, and it's in a low ceilinged environment, and because it's a wider pattern too, I can actually throw it between two people in an interview situation. But the 8040 is my next go-to mic after the 8060.
Yeah, I have a voice actor who that's his go-to mic. That's what he uses.
And it's literally 3 inches long with an XLR on it.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Conclusion. Let's go around the room.
Okay.
Conclusions. Which one would you use and why?
Okay.
If let's say the project is a VoiceOver for a radio commercial, just for the hell of it? Which one would you use and why?
I might jump in first if that's all right.
Go.
And because I am the least technical of anybody in the room, it would purely come down to dollars for us with budgetary pressures that we're constantly facing. If we were having to deck out any of our stations with a production suite, or a lot of our stations around the country where we're utilising internal talent, are using their on-air studios to record for us. But if we were to set them up with the production setup, I'd be going the Rode.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yep.
I would agree with that. I'll go with Brendan on that one. I'd go with the NTG for the same reasons, cost-wise.
Yep.
I'd actually add that, like, definitely cost, if it was, hey, we're getting a new setup and whatnot, and the cost is definitely attractive. But in my mind, also, it's a smoother mic, and I think that I can always EQ in if I need more brightness, but it's harder to take that out without more negative effects and adding it in, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point.
And in my world, where my clients are working overwhelmingly, the ones here in Hollywood, the people doing promo and commercial promo trailer stuff, they're going to keep using the 41.6 because it's just the mic that is still in all the studios. It's the mic that all the engineers' ears are already tuned to hearing. It's what their templates are already cued for. And so they don't have to put down the coffee. And it's a brand recognition. So when there's a voice actor who's trying to make his way into this business and wants to sound like he's a pro, he can say, I've got a Sennheiser 41.6. If you say Rode NTG 5, they go, oh, Rode, okay, there's a Rode. But, so that's the only reason at this point to push the 41.6 on some people. But the NTG 5 is just overall in just about every way the superior mic, in my opinion.
It's an interesting point, though, George, because I think Brendan and I, and to some extent Chris and Robert, are coming from a perspective of we're recording it so we know the sound to expect. But I guess the interesting thing to think about is if you're in a home studio and recording and, there's an engineer at the other end waiting to get that file, hearing that 41.6 sound is something that you're expecting. So when you don't get that, that's when your ears perk up and you go, hang on, what's going on here? So that's kind of interesting.
I think, Robbo, I reckon you could actually say that you've got a 41.6 and be using the NTG 5 in a home studio, and no one's ever going to know the difference. I really don't think anyone's going to pick it.
That's another point altogether. Exactly.
There's another question. There's another point.
In fact, if you'd like to fix your 416, just buy an NTG 5 and take the thing apart and put the NTG 5 inside the 416.
Well,
and you fixed your 416.
This is based on some anecdotal evidence where I had a client where I EQ'd the sibilance out of his 41.6 slightly. And his studio promo, I won't name the 3-letter acronym, but big time, whatever studio. They're like, what happened to the mic, Rick? It doesn't sound right. Rick's like, George, did you do something? Did you mess with the mic? I was like, I had just pressed the EQ button on the channel strip and turn it off. Okay. I just smoothed it out, took the sibilance out of it. And they were like, something's wrong with that mic. Something's wrong with that mic. They were just so used to that. That sibilant, edgy sound is part of it.
That's the thing, though. The 416, it slices through everything. It's just like it's obnoxious and it gets through. But one thing I was going to point out is that it's not just about the talent having a 416 because it's an easy choice. It's because if there's other engineers out there that are not enlightened to the NTG5, then the talent is basically not to blame if they have a 416.
Right. It's not that they have a better mic. It's that they don't have a 41.6.
Yeah.
So you have to buy both. Yeah. There you go. End of story.
I reckon you tell everybody that's what you've got, a 41.6, then don't bother buying one. They will never pick it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
You could do that pretty quite easily. Yeah. I mean, as you guys heard, it was the similarities. They're incredibly similar, and only the pickiest, day in, day out, does nothing but cuts promo on a 41.6 is going to really maybe notice the difference.
You nicely DS that 41.6 and we'd be having a completely different conversation.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you are going to, by chance, do stuff over Skype where they're using a video, buy yourself the foam pop filter from Sennheiser and stick it on your NTG5. And if they get a photograph, they think it's 40.
Genius. In fact, there's probably a market in that. We could come up and start selling fake Sennheiser foamies and we'd make a fortune.
Just don't let them see how much is hanging over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
We could make stubby holders that could go with it too. That's right. Yeah.
Are they the same diameter?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're a 19mm mic. Both.
Yes, they are, except the NTG5's shorter. It's about 30% shorter. Is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Do they have the same kind of interesting off-axis response like the 41.6? You know, when you go off-axis, it has that really bizarre bumpy.
Well, I think that's that's what we're talking about. The older technology that's where the 41.6 falls apart is when you go off-axis.
Yeah.
Whereas certainly their new 8000 series is much cleaner. When you turn an 8060 away from your talent, they just fade away. They don't go thin. They don't do that horrible thing. Right. So I would be very interested to hear that on a NTG5. I'm guessing it would have a very nice off-axis sound.
They get all combed out.
Okay. Well, how about this? If I move off axis, and I'm doing it right now, walking around the side of the microphone.
Yeah, you're just fading away.
Now I'm coming back. Here we are. I'm back again.
Yeah, I mean the high end goes away quickly, but that's to be expected.
But with the 41.6, you get that thinning out and almost sort of upper end distortion when you go off axis, and you're not getting that with the NTG5.
Well, I've got to say my 2 bob's worth. I would definitely, I've already made the commitment, and the NTG5 is the mic I use in here.
From now on, will be called the AP.
It should be the APG5.
While I've briefly got an audience, can I put a call out? I lent someone my Rode NT3 microphone and it's never come back. And I can't remember who I lent it to. So if anyone's out there's got it, can you please bring it back? I like that mic.
Buggers. Bring it back. Rats. Otherwise, he'll turn up nude at your front door.
Exactly.
Well, I'm looking at the polar pattern to sum that whole thing up, and they do actually have a polar pattern view of the NTG5, and just as you said, it is very smooth. Each frequency band rolls off at a different rate, but within that band, it's a smooth decay.
The physical area.
So you can see when you look at the yellow rolls off, the 16K rolls off very quickly, and as you go down in frequency, they roll off, less and less, which is what you expect to happen. And it's a smooth roll off. There's no bumps. It's just perfectly smooth.
I'm wondering if the NTG5 has as tight a pattern and as big of a back node as the 416, given that it's shorter. And does it act a little bit more cardioid or hypercardioid than it is shotgun?
I did see a demonstration of both that, and I think because of the shortness of the interference tube, you are picking up more from the rear.
What is the price difference?
Half the price of a 41.6.
No bleep.
It's not even fair because the NTG5 has like $150 or $200 worth of accessories.
Yeah.
So it's really like a $300 US mic plus a pistol grip plus, all this other stuff.
The other thing to mention too, which is Rode's outstanding feature, is their service. I've had many situations where things have happened in the field to microphones, and without question they've fixed them, and often under warranty. I had talent drop a lav mic into a cup of coffee.
Oh no!
Capsule first. And I was actually working near Silverwater where Rhodes factory is, and I actually took it in there.
Did you get a recording of that?
Yeah.
No, it stopped shortly after that. But I took it into service. I stood in reception. I said, this is exactly, I was totally upfront. I said, this has just come out of a cup of coffee. They unscrewed the capsule. They brought me a brand new one. They put it on. They said, there you go. Thanks very much. And I walked away. Not a cent spent. And I know with, I've probably got, 10, 12, 13 Rode mics of various descriptions, and I register them all for the 10-year warranty where it's available, and it's a great service. It really is.
Yeah. It's funny. I think this is something that happens with local manufacturers, because Shure is here in Chicago, and basically I've not done it, but I've heard many people around here all say this, like, oh, I found an SM57 in the garbage, and it's completely shot, and it looks like it got driven over. And you take that thing over there and they'll just basically give you a new mic. And I've heard more than one person say that.
I'm coming to Chicago to go through the garbage bins in that case.
Mics
God knows
everywhere.
what you'll find.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, I think we've come to some kind of conclusion. So I'm going NTG5 Anybody else?
Right there with you.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yep, I'm there.
Yep, cool.
Yep.
There you go.
Consensus.
The conclusion is NTG 5.
Well done, Rode.
Well done. Chris Mc Callum, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Brendan Tacey, thank you.
Been great.
This show was mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging. Edit by Andrew Peters. Using Rode microphones and Source Connect Now. Tech support from George the Tech Whittam. And supported by Harlan Hogan's VoiceOverEssentials.com. The home of the Portabooth Pro.